podcast, Statutory Residence Test, Common Errors, with John Kavanagh.
Welcome back to the UK Tax Podcast. My name is John Kavanagh and I am a chartered tax advisor with my own private practice. I mainly advise other professional advisors, but also private and business clients. I've been working in tax for 40 years and have been a chartered tax advisor for well over 30 years, so I hope this podcast will offer something useful. In this episode, I'm going to look at some of the common mistakes made in applying the Statutory Residence Test. These are not merely anecdotal or my personal opinion, as they have repeatedly arisen in professional queries, HMRC compliance activity, and tribunal disputes. The first frequent error is failing to apply the various tests under the SRT in the correct order. The legislation requires starting with the automatic overseas tests first before moving on, but some taxpayers jump straight to the sufficient ties test without properly considering the automatic overseas tests. This point has been highlighted not only in HMRC's own guidance, but also in queries raised through the Association of Taxation, Technicians and Chartered Institute of Taxation's channels. Another frequent mistake is misunderstanding what counts as a UK day for the purposes of the SRT. A day is normally counted if the person is in the UK at midnight, unless it qualifies as a transit day. The transit exception only applies, however, if the person doesn't do anything in the UK except pass through it as part of their journey. If they stop for a business meeting, visit family, or go out for a meal, the day will count as a UK day. Her Majesty's Revenue and Customs and the tribunals take a strict approach on this. There's also confusion over what counts as a home for the purposes of the automatic UK tests. The rules don't require ownership or a formal tenancy for a place to be your home. If, for example, someone stays regularly at a place with some degree of permanence, it can count as a home. That includes, for example, staying repeatedly at a partner's flat or a property owned by a family member. The next two problem areas relate to ties where the sufficient ties test is relevant. The 90-day tie in particular is widely misunderstood. It's based on the number of days the person was in the UK in each of the two previous UK tax years. It's not a rolling 12-month test, as some seem to believe, and the day count for this purpose includes every day the person was physically present in the UK, regardless of whether they stayed overnight or worked. The family tie can also cause problems. If a taxpayer's spouse or minor child is UK resident, that counts as a tie. The test doesn't ask whether they live together. It applies even if the child is away at boarding school or staying with the other parent after a separation. This often catches people who think they've left the UK but still have close family here. Finally, there's the very basic question of evidence, as without it you are unlikely to have your version of events accepted. Day counts must be supported with proper records. People often rely on travel bookings or memory, but that's not enough. Her Majesty's Revenue and Customs can and will check mobile phone data, passport stamps and other records if they do not consider the evidence presented to be acceptable. Counting a few days incorrectly can be enough to trigger residence, which can have major tax consequences. The SRT is detailed and mechanical, but that definitely doesn't mean it's simple. Errors often arise from assumptions, shortcuts, informal interpretations, or simple misunderstandings. The consequences can be significant, especially where the residence result affects exposure to UK tax on worldwide income and gains. I'm John Kavanagh, and I'd like to thank you for listening to this episode of the UK Tax Podcast. More episodes are on the way, and I very much hope you will join me again for the next and future episodes.